Nicole Masters is an agroecologist who sees herself as a soil detective, working with farmers to help their production become more efficient. Nicole has been working with Kokako Farms in Hastings, who won the Soil Management Award in the 2014 East Coast Balanced Farm Environment Awards.
When you look at everything we're talking about, global carbon cycles or water quality or food quality, it all comes back to soil. When I arrive on farm, it really is like gathering a history and physical like a doctor would. So we look at what's happened here in the past, where do you want to go into the future, and building observation skills. So, really try and enhance that in the farm. And the farmers or the growers I'm working with is what can we see visually. We dig holes, we look at all the sort of indicators that we can see, what's happening with livestock, what's happening with crop health, what are we dealing with, weeds, pests, disease. It really is quite an intensive process.
Seeing the pastures looking a little thicker. And
the number one limiting factor on farm is not nitrogen. Most people think it is. It's actually oxygen. So if we've got really tight compacted soils and we haven't got airflow, then we're not getting root development, we're not getting biologically cycling, to the nutrients to the plant. So it might be what we're dealing with is actually compaction could be limiting, 30% of your production. So if we can look at how can we get air in there, and that's all about biology and getting our nutrients balanced.
Roots, there's some sleeping worms.
Indicators for soil health is we want to see a lovely crumb structure. We want to see lovely dark colours. So those dark colours are about carbon, and carbon's all about water holding capacity, and it's like the hospital in the soil that we've got somewhere for the microbes to go. Smell's a big thing. So that smell that we can smell is like, on a rainy day and you're driving along in your car and it's a hot summer's day and a shower comes along and you get that hit by that smell. It's an organism called actinomycetes, and it's what they actually harvest for antibiotics in hospitals. So it's a big part of protecting that soil. So we can smell that, we know that's a really good healthy smell. We want to see obviously lots of earthworms. It's going to change depending on the time of the year. I have a lot of tools that I use. So we use the refractometer, which really is the basis of what we're doing in biological systems. Is if we have a measurement of photosynthesis, we can very quickly tell how well is that plant functioning. And the refractometer tells me things about nitrates as well. It's something that we get a lot of information from, and I can test the weeds as well, so we can look at how well are the weeds photosynthesizing. And what can be quite shocking is that often your weeds are doing a better job than what your pasture is, and we can look at how can we change that program so that the plants start photosynthesizing faster. So it's a tool that I see increasingly, the more that you use it, the more information that you gain. Weeds tell you a lot about what's going on. Sometimes it's minerally imbalanced, sometimes it's microbially imbalanced. So if we can bring those things up, address whatever's happening with the microbes, we can actually get rid of weeds.
Vineyard management was a toolbox-based approach, and we were finding that things weren't responding, problematic weeds, micro and macronutrient deficiencies showing up. The system wasn't about to fall over, but I could see that it was flawed and we had to change something if we were going to make advances. We were really going down the track of how do we solve problematic weeds that didn't respond to traditional glyphosate. With grapes, the weeds growing up into the fruit zone is when it becomes undesirable for winemaking, also increases humidity around the grapes. So we started looking at problem weeds first, but when Nicole came out and we dug some holes in the ground to try and look at, was it soil structure, was it nutrition, both, or we couldn't find any worms. I just assumed that worms were everywhere, and we couldn't find any in the herbicide strip. And so for Nicole that was horror. For me that was like, oh okay, we're supposed to have worms right here. And so that started the brain churning and the research in my own time and things like that. And Nicole's first response to me was get rid of herbicide, and I didn't know how to do that immediately. So it took another 12 months for us to work out how to exit herbicide from the system. There was an initial spike in cost as we started running both biological and conventional systems together, but now we're extremely happy with the results, and the input costs are a good 25 to 30% lower for us than what they were in 2006, 2007. The results we got in the vineyard were successful enough for us to want to carry it on into the next two components of the business, and apples were the easiest to implement that, so we have started that 24 months ago. and the farm's only just come onto my desk. So we've just started this first 12-month period under those same sort of guidelines.
There's some quite simple things that Bruce can do to lift the quality in the pasture here. Part of what we're dealing with here is low calcium and low phosphorus, so we'll be looking at how can we lift those capital inputs, but also we have some real indicators that the biological cycle's not working as well as it could. And some of them are really simple products that we can put on that might cost, say, $10 a hectare, but actually significantly lift production. So grazing management's a big part of that. So you can see we're getting that spread of manure, making paddock sizes smaller. We start to see the biology really respond to that. So instead of having all this woody sort of grass sitting around, we're trampling it in, incorporating that carbon, biology feed on it. We start to see soil qualities build, and we're growing better pasture. Bricks is just one part of the puzzle, but when it comes down to if we can lift the bricks and the sugars then become everything in the plant. So we're talking about your proteins, your amino acids, your omega-3 or whatever starts as sugars so in photosynthesis. So if we can measure that, we get an indicator for what's happening with that plant growth. But then if we've got a higher bricks, it means that for every mouthful that that cow's eating, if there's 3 times the bricks and 3 times the quality in it, then she's getting 3 times that quality with each bite. So we find that those livestock eat less and are more content and will lie down quicker. So we're getting better utilisation of pasture, and we also get better even grazing when that bricks comes up. If I was going to be asked what the biggest key to success is and what's going to help farmers and growers the most, it all happens in here. There's your biggest tool. So those farmers and growers that are willing to ask the why questions. So it is a change of mindset. Instead of looking at calendar spraying or how can I kill something, it's about how can I be proactive, what's causing this in the first place. So I do see it as preventative medicine. So let's go for a run, or let's drink less alcohol because maybe that's what's contributing to my health. It's a big part of that in these growing systems. So it is a mindset, so you've got to be willing to educate yourself, read books, go to workshops, conferences, and yeah, you're the biggest resource at the end of the day.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.